just going to give a presentation to us, and then we will go back to the agenda and we will try to keep things moving so we can get it.
Thank you very much. On a park-related topic, that's why I'm introducing this. You may have heard that the Millennium Partners has proposed to build a 750-foot tall building in Winthrop Square in the financial district, which is built, would cast a shade and shadow on the Boston Common and the public garden. These parks are currently protected by a state law that bans shadows on those two parks. Mayor Walsh is looking for the state legislature to amend the shadow laws in order for this tower to be built on the city-owned site. I wanted to discuss that tonight. In addition to that, NEWRA and 8 other neighborhood organizations are part of a group called ADCO, the Alliance for Downtown Civic Organizations. And ADCO has written a letter that opposes this change in the shadow law. And they've invited other neighborhood organizations to sign that letter. One of those organizations, part of ADCO, is the Neighborhood Association of Back Bay, and I've asked Vicki Smith, the chairperson of that group, to join us tonight because she is spearheading the resistance to changing the shadow laws, and she's going to discuss the law. And tonight we're going to be asking for a vote on whether NEWRA should participate in the project review of this.
Robin, thank you, and thanks Warren for inviting me. We've been kind of actively working on this at City Hall and trying to talk to city councilors, but the letter itself addresses the issue. What we're all terrified of is the fact that this tower, which is almost as tall as the John Hancock Tower, will get a one-time exemption, which then opens up the door that so no other laws matter. It's just, okay, one developer got it, why can't somebody else get it? And to give you some idea, we're still asking for shadow studies, we still haven't gotten them. The John Hancock Tower, which was built before this law was enacted, in the winter, the shadow goes all the way up the State House lawn. I mean, that's how long the kind of shadows that we're talking about. And so we've seen 3 different shadow studies. They've all been different. Now they're averaging shadow studies, so it doesn't matter that things are really growing. We probably know more about that. There's that shadow until 9 o'clock in the morning. So we're trying to sort of keep the mayor from changing the law or trying to change the law, which is exactly what this law was there for. This law was meant so that if developers or specific mayors or administrations wanted to change the law, it would be protected by the state. So the ADCO resolution, and on the Texas Public Group, says, Dear Mayor Walsh, we, the duly authorized representatives of our respective neighborhood associations to the Alliance of Downtown Civic Organizations, ADCO, oppose any amendment of the state shadow laws protecting the Boston Common and public gardens that are aimed at securing approval for one specific project or for development on one specific site that is otherwise illegal. Our reasons for taking this position are simple, robust, and fundamental. They are founded on our request for durable principles of public policy and a pragmatic appreciation of the long-term deleterious consequences of deviating from these principles, leading to the following conclusions. Amendment of the shadow laws on a site and/or project-specific basis would set a precedent, opening the floodgates to other developers to request comparable changes in law to obtain approval for their projects. Assurances that such an amendment would be a one-time exception, cannot be binding on future administrations, and might be vulnerable to challenges on the grounds of discrimination, i.e. undue favoritism towards one company. Amendment to long-standing laws that have not hindered substantial development in the city during their lifetime would harm and diminish the value of 2 iconic public spaces in Boston. They are enjoyed by all residents as well as millions of visitors every year from throughout the Commonwealth, the nation, and the world. These visitors make significant contributions to the city's economy that would be impaired should these public spaces become less attractive. Moreover, the perception that Boston considers the demands of developers linked to the construction of luxury residences should override preservation of the values of these spaces. Our heritage could reduce the willingness of private donors to help fund their upkeep. City funds would then have to be found to overcome any shortfalls in the outlays needed to maintain and improve them. The precedent of an amendment to the shadow laws would signal an ad hoc attitude towards development of Boston. It would frustrate efforts to ensure the pursuit of a coherent and balanced vision for the future of the city, the interest of all its residents, businesses, and institutions, as well as its economy and social harmony. And finally, amendment of the shadow laws on behalf of one developer is bad public policy. It violates the principle behind the rule of law that everyone is subject to law, including lawmakers themselves, as opposed to being subject to contingent or opportunistic decisions of individual government officials. Millennium Partners expects the city to have state laws amended for one specific building that is proposed for the Winthrop Square garage site, so it can achieve an attractive return on a perceived investment opportunity. Thank you for your understanding and anticipated support. Sincerely, and this is signed by AGCO. But we're not against development. The shadow laws, which were enacted in the 90s, allowed the development of the heritage of the Four Seasons, all of those businesses, but they all stuck to the height limitation that they were supposed to. And so we've had robust development, things have gone well, and we sort of feel like by opening the door, we also wouldn't guarantee, I know, we talked about shadow protection for other parks in the city, for the Greenway, for all those parks. But once you say that the laws really don't matter, it doesn't matter without protection. You get another time. And that's kind of our fear, is once this exception is made, it changes everything. So thank you all very much. The Friends of the Public Garden also has a website and a shadow from the Hancock showing what that does. And Back Bay, also on our NAV website, has more information. And I'll be glad to take any quick questions if people want to.
Could you repeat the height of the building that's proposed, and also how high could the developer build this structure without violating?
Without violating it, we're not sure because they haven't told us and we haven't seen a study. We think it would be about 425 feet. The FAA today, there's an article, I don't know if people saw it, today's Globe, saying that nobody's going over 710 feet. Including this developer. So, but I think right now it would be closer to 400. That where they're putting it, where they're, where the Winthrop Square garage is, most of those buildings are about 40 stories already. It's not like a 11-story roof. But of the original 8 proposals, not the 6 final proposals, 2 of them were much smaller. I mean, the final 6, based on the RFP, were 700 feet. But there's nothing that says this couldn't be built. And we'd love to have this built, or even do a land swap. So they could put this someplace else that it wouldn't cast shadows on parks and build. And something else could be built there. So we're not saying no development, we're just saying no.
So, Vicki, can I just ask you, are you requesting some action from our
We would love if you would endorse the advocacy condition. We'd like to ask for a vote. The Neighborhood Association of the Back Bay voted about a month ago, unanimously actually, to oppose this. We're not completely affected, although the shadow is so great, we go down the Commonwealth Avenue Mall, the first block, about 100 or 150 days of the year, and that is not legal.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Stephen Pascantilli, 406 Hannah Street. What is the, so you said 150 days the shadow was cast over the common into the public garden, is that what you said?
Well, it changes on different days, like 100, I don't know the exact dates, but it's like 150 in the common and then like some 100, 200 in the public garden. It's different in both spaces and then down the Commonwealth Avenue.
And what was, you probably, obviously you know more about this than I do. I should know the answer to this question, but what were the impacts of the shadow? So like what was the timetable in certain parts of the year or date, did they break it down like daily, it's X
No,
amount?
every shadow study we've seen has been different.
Okay.
That Millennium's put on and on their site, they averaged it. So it's like saying there's an average wind speed. So it's hard to know, but the part that we're most concerned about are the sort of shoulder seasons. So March, April, May, and particularly if there's late sunshine on those, and then again in the fall. And, I don't know, I've lived in Back Bay for 40 years, and those parks are pretty well used early in the morning. I mean, there are people out from Chinatown doing Tai Chi, there are dog walkers. I mean, there are just a lot of people from a lot of different neighborhoods in those parks in the morning.
Any other questions?
Joanne Hayes, Ryan's East Indian Road. What is the zoning for that space?
It is, I'm gonna get this wrong, it is considered you may know this, whether it's, the downtown ICOD expired. So, the question is it, I will have to get back to you with the exact zoning, because it is zoned, I think, for, regular height at that height, like all of those, buildings are.
Maybe 400 feet.
400 feet, because 400 feet wouldn't represent a shadow. So, and you can build up to any height that doesn't have the shadow. And even in the shadow bank, there's still a quarter of an acre that's left that could be covered, but this far exceeds that.
Any other questions? I'll take one more.
Just one
Jason?
comment. I know that it says the vote will be taken on whether we should write a comment letter, and I wouldn't object to that. However, I would say you shouldn't have the developer here to make a presentation on the project before we get into, we take a position on, and then we on that letter, so we get a better understanding for ourselves, shadows and studies.
I think the timing's pretty tight, yeah.
Well, then, the legislature didn't get that bill yet anyway. They just were filed
Let me be clear, and Ford Cavallari from Battery Street.
I'm sorry, Jason, did everybody hear what Jason said?
Want to see the other viewpoint.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. Ford Cavallari from Battery Street. I'm also the chair of the Alliance of Downtown Civic Organizations, and Vicki is, and NEWRA and all those. There are 10 largest neighborhood associations downtown members. This resolution is carefully worded to not actually talk about the Winthrop Square project. It talks about the concept that if you have a state law, you don't go and give an exception to that law on a one-time basis with a wink and a nod because you're showing favoritism to some developer. And probably by extension, you don't run an RFP process which solicits only and filters out only proposals that actually break the state law. We think that's terrible public policy. The last point that Vicki made really nails it on the head. You don't want to have a public policy of making laws and immediately granting exceptions to them because the laws mean nothing. That means perhaps a 55-foot height limit in the north end actually means nothing, and someone's going to get an exception to it because there is a precedent set that you can have exceptions to these laws. So that's why I don't think you need to talk to the developer. It doesn't matter if it's Millennium or some other developer. It's the fact that we're allowing city and state officials, we're in a conversation where they're just going to throw the law out on a one-time basis. That's nuts.
I know, but it says the project review process, not a resolution.
Well, yeah, I think the wording here is a little bit different.
The agenda.
Yeah, I mean,
I believe we should be involved, and I have issues with this.
do you remember
But
what?
is that the resolution which you read?
Yeah.
This is,
So the,
I just think we got.
yeah, I think that perhaps one problem is that our agenda was perhaps not exactly accurate because it it arose from the Winthrop Square project, and I think it's the Winthrop Square project that is causing people to propose a one-time change to the statute, but it sounds like the resolution is really more about the idea of making a one-time change to the statute for any project, not just Winthrop Square.
Exactly,
Is
the
that
issue is
correct?
precedent, it's not really, it's not any one developer.
So I guess that being, so the resolution that you just read to us is what we are being asked to sign onto this resolution. So I guess, is there anyone who would like to make a motion with regard to signing onto this resolution?
I move that we vote to support or oppose the resolution.
Second.
Second.
Okay, I think we should do this by a ballot vote. So
Use number 2.
We'll use number 2. And, okay, so if you are Supporting means that we will support the resolution of ADCO that was just read to us. If you are opposing, then you are opposed to signing on to the resolution of ADCO.
I can put that on the website.
So, and yes, you will put the resolution on, but is there anyone who feels they're not clear as to what the resolution was? Okay, so we will go ahead and vote on this on ballot number 2.